Hey everyone, welcome back to Guided Country Tours, and let's be real for a second. Have you ever thought about just leaving everything behind and starting fresh somewhere new? I mean, not just a vacation, but like a whole new life? It sounds crazy, right? But for a growing number of Americans, it's not crazy at all. In fact, it's becoming a reality. We're talking about a mass exodus of Americans leaving the US in 2025, and the numbers are staggering. It's like everyone's suddenly decided to trade in their apple pie for, well, maybe pastel de nata in Portugal, or pad thai on the beaches of Thailand. So, what's driving this massive shift? What's making people pack their bags and say, see you later to the good old US of A? Well, buckle up, my friends, because in this video, we're diving deep into the top 10 reasons why millions of Americans are packing their bags and heading for greener pastures. From skyrocketing living costs to a serious case of political fatigue, we're breaking down the factors fueling this unprecedented wave of emigration. And trust me, some of these reasons might just surprise you. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you might just find yourself Googling visas for digital nomads and daydreaming about a life abroad. Let's get to it. Let's kick things off with a topic that's probably hitting close to home for a lot of us: the ever-increasing cost of living in the United States. I mean, seriously, have you seen the price of rent lately? It's like landlords are playing a cruel game of Monopoly, and we're all just tiny metal thimbles struggling to stay afloat. We're talking about cities like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, where rent for a one-bedroom apartment can easily set you back more than a used car payment. And don't even get me started on the cost of groceries, gas, and utilities. It's enough to make you want to move into a yurt and live off the grid. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be this way. There are places in the world, beautiful, vibrant places, where you can actually afford to live, not just survive. Countries like Portugal, Mexico, and Thailand offer a much more affordable lifestyle, with rent often being 50 to 70% cheaper than in major US cities. Imagine that actually being able to save money each month, maybe even take a vacation or two without having to sell a kidney. It's no wonder that so many Americans are looking at these countries and thinking, wait a minute, I could actually afford to live there, and maybe even have some money left over for, fun things. And it's not just about the rent, folks. The cost of living encompasses everything from groceries and transportation to entertainment and healthcare. And let me tell you, in many of these countries, your dollar, or should I say, your euro or peso, goes a lot further. We talked to Sarah, an American expat living in Mexico, who told us that her monthly expenses are now less than half of what they were back in the States. I can actually afford to eat out at nice restaurants, travel on the weekends, and still save money, she said. It's a whole different world. And Sarah's not alone. Countless Americans are sharing similar stories of financial freedom and a higher quality of life since moving abroad. They're finding that they can finally pursue their passions, start businesses, or simply enjoy life without the constant burden of financial stress. So, if you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck, if you're dreaming of a life where you can actually afford to enjoy yourself, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to start looking beyond the borders of the United States. Okay, let's talk about something that's enough to make anyone break out in a cold sweat: healthcare costs in the United States. I mean, seriously, is it just me? Or does it feel like we're stuck in some kind of dystopian nightmare where a broken bone can cost you your life savings? The reality is, the US spends more on healthcare per person than almost any other developed country in the world. And yet, despite these astronomical costs, we're not exactly leading the pack in terms of health outcomes. It's a system that seems designed to bankrupt you even if you have insurance. Think about it. A simple trip to the emergency room can leave you with thousands of dollars in medical bills. A routine surgery? Forget about it. It's enough to make you want to become a medical professional yourself, just so you can diagnose and treat your own ailments with whatever spare medical supplies you can find around the house. But here's the kicker. It doesn't have to be this way. There are countries out there where healthcare is not only affordable but also high quality. Countries like Thailand, Portugal, and Mexico offer excellent healthcare systems that won't break the bank. We're talking about countries where a doctor's visit can cost less than a meal at a fancy restaurant, where surgeries are a fraction of the price, and where you don't have to choose between your health and your financial well-being. Take Thailand, for example. Thailand has become a global destination for medical tourism with people flocking from all over the world to receive high-quality, affordable healthcare. From routine checkups to complex procedures, Thailand offers a wide range of medical services at a fraction of the cost of what you'd pay in the US. Or consider Portugal, a country known for its excellent universal healthcare system. In Portugal, both residents and citizens have access to affordable, comprehensive healthcare, including doctor's visits, hospital stays, and prescription drugs. And the best part? You won't have to empty your retirement account to pay for it. So, if the thought of another medical bill sends shivers down your spine, if you're tired of feeling like you're being held hostage by the healthcare industrial complex, then maybe it's time to start exploring your options abroad. Because healthcare shouldn't be a luxury, it should be a right. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the Zoom meeting, or maybe the elephant at the beachside cafe, because it's remote work. The way we work is changing, like dramatically changing. Remember offices? Those weird places with fluorescent lights and passive-aggressive post-it notes? The pandemic kind of blew the whole "you have to be physically present to do your job" thing out of the water. And a lot of people, myself included sometimes, found that, hey, maybe working from home in your pajamas isn't so bad after all. But here's the thing, if you can work from home, why not work from home, you know? Why not swap that cramped apartment overlooking a parking lot for a balcony overlooking the ocean? Why not trade in rush hour traffic for, I don't know, surfing before your morning meeting? This isn't some far-fetched fantasy, by the way. This is the reality for a growing number of digital nomads, folks who are ditching the traditional 9-to-5 grind and choosing location independence instead. And look, I get it, the idea of packing up your life and moving to, say, Bali or Thailand might seem a little intimidating, maybe even a little crazy. But for a lot of people, it's becoming less about escaping reality and more about creating a new one. Because when your office can be a coffee shop in Lisbon one day and a co-working space in Buenos Aires the next, the possibilities are kind of endless. You're not just working remotely, you're living remotely, experiencing new cultures, meeting new people, and honestly probably getting a lot more vitamin D. And this isn't just some fringe movement anymore. Countries are starting to recognize the economic potential of attracting digital nomads. We're talking about things like special visas, tax breaks, the whole shebang. So yeah, remote work is changing the game. And for a lot of Americans, it's not just about changing their job, it's about changing their entire life. And hey, maybe that life involves a lot less snow and a lot more, I don't know, mango sticky rice. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or maybe the elephant on the Twitter feed. Because let's be real, the political and social climate in the US has been, well, kind of a dumpster fire lately. And I don't just mean the kind of dumpster fire that makes you scroll past quickly on your timeline. I mean the kind of dumpster fire that makes you question, like, the very fabric of reality, the kind that makes you want to chuck your phone into the ocean and go live in a yurt in the woods. Except even then, the yurt would probably have Wi-Fi, and someone would inevitably start arguing about politics in the online yurt community forum. Because the truth is, it's hard to escape the feeling that we're more divided than ever. And it's not just about disagreeing on policy anymore, it's about fundamental differences in values, beliefs, even basic facts. And look, I'm all for healthy debate and diverse perspectives. But it's hard to have a productive conversation when everyone's yelling at each other from their respective echo chambers. It's exhausting, frankly. And for a lot of Americans, it's more than just exhausting, it's a major factor in their decision to leave. Because when the constant barrage of negativity starts to impact your mental health, your relationships, your overall sense of well-being, it's only natural to start looking for an exit. And for some people, that exit leads to a one-way ticket out of the country. Not necessarily because they hate America, but because they need a break from the relentless negativity, the constant tension, the feeling that everything is always on the verge of imploding. They're not necessarily looking for a utopia, but they are looking for a place where they can breathe a little easier, where they can have a conversation without it devolving into a shouting match, where they can just, exist without feeling like the world is ending. And who knows, maybe a little distance is what we all need sometimes, a chance to step back, gain some perspective, and remember that there's more to life than the latest Twitter feud or cable news meltdown. Okay, let's talk about everyone's favorite subject, taxes. Just kidding, taxes are about as fun as, like, a root canal at the DMV. But they're also kind of unavoidable, especially if you live in a society that, has roads and schools and firefighters who aren't constantly on fire themselves. But here's the thing. The US tax system can feel a little bit like, I don't know, being nibbled to death by ducks. It's death by 1,000 tiny cuts. Except instead of cuts, it's deductions, exemptions, and forms that require a PhD in accounting to understand. And then there's the whole issue of where your tax dollars are actually going. Because while I'm all for funding essential services, it's hard not to feel a little bit frustrated when you see your hard-earned money going towards like another military jet or a bridge to nowhere. So it's no surprise that a lot of Americans are looking for ways to keep more of their money in their own pockets. And for some, that means exploring tax-friendly countries, places where the tax burden is lighter and the financial benefits are, well, more beneficial. We're talking about countries like Panama, Portugal, the UAE, places that offer tax incentives for expats, retirees, and entrepreneurs. And no, I'm not talking about shady offshore accounts or anything illegal. I'm talking about perfectly legal ways to reduce your tax liability and keep more of your hard-earned cash. Because when you're not shelling out a huge chunk of your income to Uncle Sam, you have more freedom to pursue your passions, invest in your future, or just, buy a really nice pair of noise-canceling headphones so you can ignore the news cycle for a while. And honestly, isn't that what financial freedom is all about? Having the flexibility and security to live life on your own terms, whether that means traveling the world, pursuing a creative project, or just enjoying a really good cup of coffee without worrying about the price tag. So far, we've talked a lot about the financial reasons why people are leaving the US, but it's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about something much more fundamental: feeling safe. I'm talking about safety, not just from violent crime, but from the kind of low-grade, everyday anxiety that can come from living in a place where you don't feel secure. And let's be honest, the news cycle doesn't exactly paint a rosy picture of safety in the US these days. Whether it's mass shootings, rising crime rates in some areas, or just a general sense of unease, it's understandable why some people are looking for a change. Now, it's important to remember that no country is a utopia, and every place has its own challenges. But for some people, the trade-off of potentially lower crime rates and a greater sense of personal security is worth considering. And when you look at places like Portugal, Japan, or Costa Rica, which consistently rank highly in global safety indices, it's not hard to see why they might seem appealing. Of course, personal experiences can vary widely, and what feels safe for one person might not feel safe for another. But the point is, safety is a deeply personal and subjective thing. It's about more than just statistics. It's about peace of mind. It's about being able to walk down the street at night without constantly looking over your shoulder. And it's about feeling like your children can play outside without fear. And for some people, that sense of security is worth seeking out, even if it means leaving behind everything they've ever known. When we talk about safety abroad, it's not just about avoiding specific dangers, it's also about the overall feeling of security that a place provides. That feeling can come from a variety of factors: strong social safety nets, a culture of respect and community, or even just a slower pace of life. Imagine for a moment living in a place where you don't have to worry about healthcare bankrupting you if you get sick, where your kids can walk to school alone without you having a panic attack, and where people generally look out for each other. That's not to say that these places are perfect, because no place is. But, for many Americans who have made the move, this sense of security and well-being is a breath of fresh air. They talk about feeling more relaxed, less stressed, and more able to simply enjoy their lives. They talk about their kids being able to roam free and make friends easily. And they talk about a sense of community that they never felt back home. Now, I know what you might be thinking: John, this all sounds great, but isn't it incredibly difficult to just pick up and move to another country? And you're right, it's not always easy. It takes courage, planning, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. But, as more and more Americans make the leap, they're proving that it's not impossible either. And for many, the rewards, including that elusive sense of safety and security, are well worth the effort. Okay, let's talk about education. Specifically, let's talk about the skyrocketing cost of college in the United States. I mean, we've all heard the horror stories, right? Students graduating with mountains of debt, families remortgaging their homes to pay tuition fees, and the ever-looming question, is a college degree even worth it anymore? For many families, the answer is becoming increasingly unclear. And it's not just about the cost of tuition itself, it's about the textbooks, the room and board, the living expenses. It all adds up. It's enough to make you want to tear your hair out, right? But what if I told you that there's another way? What if I told you that there are countries out there where higher education is not only affordable, but in some cases even free? Now I know what you're thinking. John, you're going to tell me to move to Europe, aren't you? And you're not wrong. Many European countries like Germany, Norway, and Finland offer tuition-free or very low-cost university education even to international students. That's right, you heard me correctly, free college. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? But it's a reality for millions of students around the world. But it's not just about the cost savings, although those are pretty significant. It's also about the quality of education. Many of these countries have world-renowned universities, with highly respected faculty and rigorous academic programs. And let's not forget about the cultural immersion that comes with studying abroad. Imagine your kids becoming fluent in another language, experiencing different cultures firsthand, and developing a global perspective. That's an education you can't put a price tag on, right? Of course, moving your family abroad for education is a big decision. It's not something to be taken lightly. But for some families, it's an investment in their children's future that they simply can't afford not to make. And who knows, maybe your kids will even thank you for it someday. Let's talk about work-life balance, or rather, the lack thereof that so many Americans experience. We live in a culture that glorifies the hustle, the grind, the never-ending pursuit of, well, more. More money, more success, more stuff. But at what cost? When do we get to actually enjoy the fruits of our labor? When do we get to relax, recharge, and spend time with the people we love? It often feels like we're stuck on a hamster wheel, running and running, but never actually getting anywhere. We work long hours, we're constantly connected to our devices, and taking a vacation feels like a distant dream. And the worst part, it's not even making us happy. In fact, studies have shown that Americans are some of the most stressed out people in the world. We're overworked, overscheduled, and frankly over it. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. And no, I'm not talking about some mythical utopia. I'm talking about places like France, Spain, Denmark, and many others. Countries where people prioritize spending time with their families, enjoying their hobbies, and savoring life's simple pleasures. Imagine finishing work at a reasonable hour, having dinner with your loved ones, and maybe even taking a stroll through the park before bed. Sounds pretty good, right? And here's the kicker, they're not any less productive. In fact, many of these countries have higher levels of productivity and happiness than the United States. So, what's the secret? Well, it's not really a secret. It's about recognizing that there's more to life than work. It's about prioritizing your well-being, setting boundaries, and not being afraid to disconnect from the digital world. It's about embracing a slower pace of life, one where you have time to actually smell the roses, or, drink a glass of wine and watch the sunset. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about? Living a life that's full of joy, connection, and meaning. Okay, so maybe it's not quite a scene from a dystopian novel, but let's be real, the climate crisis is getting harder and harder to ignore. Across the US, we're seeing increasingly extreme weather events, from scorching heat waves and devastating wildfires to polar vortexes that would make a penguin shiver. It's like Mother Nature is staging an intervention, and we're all stuck in the awkward silence that follows. And it's not just the immediate danger, right? It's the long-term implications, the creeping dread that the places we call home might not be habitable for much longer. It's no wonder that people are looking for a way out, a chance to escape the escalating chaos and find somewhere, well, more. For some, that means seeking refuge in countries with more temperate climates, places where the weather forecast doesn't read like a Michael Bay movie script. Countries like Portugal, with its stunning coastline and mild, sunny weather, are becoming increasingly popular destinations for climate migrants. And hey, who wouldn't trade a wildfire for a sunset over the Algarve? Now, I know what you might be thinking, John, this all sounds a bit dramatic, and maybe it is a little, but the reality is, climate change is already displacing millions of people worldwide, and the United States is no exception. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but one thing's for sure, the desire for a safe and stable environment is deeply human, And as the planet heats up, that desire is only going to intensify. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about home, about belonging. For some, it might mean relocating within the United States, moving further north or to higher ground. But for others, it means looking beyond the borders, seeking out countries with more sustainable practices and a greater commitment to environmental protection. And it's not just about finding a physical safe haven, it's also about finding a sense of community, a shared understanding of the challenges we face. It's about finding hope in the face of an uncertain future. Because let's be honest folks, we're all in this together. Whether we're sweltering through a heat wave in Arizona or enjoying a breezy afternoon in Costa Rica. We've talked a lot about the challenges facing Americans today. The high cost of living, the healthcare conundrum, the political polarization that seems to get worse every day. It's enough to make anyone want to pack their bags and hop on the next flight to, well, anywhere else really. But here's the thing, it's not just about escaping the bad, it's about pursuing the good. It's about seeking out a life that feels more aligned with our values, a life where we can actually, instead of just survive. And for many Americans, that means looking beyond the borders of the US. Because let's face it, the traditional American dream, the house, the picket fence, the two-car garage, has become increasingly elusive for many. It's a dream built on a foundation that's starting to crumble, and frankly, it's leaving a lot of people feeling disillusioned and burnt out. So, what's the alternative? Well, for a growing number of Americans, the answer lies in embracing a more globally minded perspective, in seeking out countries that prioritize well-being and happiness over relentless productivity and material wealth. Countries like Denmark, known for its hygge lifestyle, or Costa Rica, where Pura Vida is more than just a catchy phrase, it's a way of life. And you know what? These countries consistently rank among the happiest in the world. Coincidence? I think not. It turns out that factors like strong social safety nets, accessible healthcare, and a healthy work-life balance have a pretty significant impact on overall well-being. Now, I'm not saying that moving abroad is a magic solution to all of life's problems. It's not. But it can be a powerful catalyst for change, a chance to redefine what truly matters and create a life that feels more aligned with your values and aspirations. And who knows, maybe in the process we can learn a thing or two about living a happier, more fulfilling life, both as individuals and as a global community. So, there you have it. 10 compelling reasons why millions of Americans are packing their bags and bidding farewell to the land of the free and the home of the increasingly expensive. From the soaring cost of living and healthcare to the allure of remote work and a better work-life balance, the motivations are as diverse as the destinations themselves. But ultimately, it boils down to this: a yearning for something more. A desire for a life that feels more aligned with our values and aspirations, a life that feels, well, more. So, what do you think? Would you ever consider leaving the US in pursuit of a new adventure, a new perspective, a new definition of home? Drop a comment below and let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more insights on moving abroad and embracing a more globally minded life. The world is waiting, folks. The adventure begins now.